Okay, hello world. This is Dietrich von Seggern, Managing Director, Callas Software. Next session is about pdfToolbox internals. So we have already presented you some stuff that we have done. So we had a very technical session just a couple of minutes ago, and I think in this session it's also somehow, at least some of the topics that we want to cover are more technical, more internals, but there are also some things that are really visible in UI. I will be doing this together with my colleague with the 4P CTO, David, and I'm really looking forward to share this content with him and with you. Okay, let's move on. And again, I mean, we had a very lively session just a couple of minutes ago. Any questions, just write them down, let us know. We will try to answer them on the fly. So this is the agenda for our session. So first, a bigger part of the session will be about user unit. So I will introduce you, or for the ones who don't know what that actually is, I will give a short introduction, and then we will let you know what has changed when it comes to user unit in pdfToolbox 12. So in fact, that was a major work. So internally, although you wouldn't hopefully see a lot of it, it was a lot of work for us in development and QA. Then a short one on the MediaBox thing. Then David will tell you about what has changed when it comes to internal PDF optimization, something that always is executed when you apply a change to a fix-up. Some optimization takes place, and we have changed the way there, how that takes place. And then two topics that are more visible. There is a couple of tools in pdfToolbox that are available without activation. That has always been the case, but we have added to that. And I will also explain why we have done so. And then in the last part of this session, will David talk about actions that also got a big improvement when dealing with them. So action is what you usually create in a switchboard up until now. So moving on, full user unit support, and user unit in effect has been called in pdfToolbox 11 scaling factor. So user unit kind of is the same thing as a scaling factor. And again, for the ones who aren't familiar with what that actually is, PDF for a long time had the limitation that the dimensions of an edge of the height or the width of a page can't be higher than 200 inch, which is roughly 5 meters for Central Europeans, for whatever. So 5 meters, 200 inch. And then for some applications or for large format, you would want to have higher values there, and for that reason in PDF 1.6, so already some time ago, user units were introduced, and that the user unit basically changes the size of an internal unit in the PDF file, so which by default is 1 point, and if you say have a user unit of 4, then the internal default value is 4 point, which means the size is 4 times bigger of the PDF file. And since you can have fractions as small values inside of a PDF file as you want, there is no limitation in what you can do size-wise in a PDF file since then. Nevertheless, in the most recent version of PDF, the PDF 2.0 specification, there is no such limit at all. So there you can do whatever you want. but we all know that PDF 2.0 files aren't frequently used as of today, so this is just for your information so far. Okay, and now just what was in pdfToolbox 11. For a long time, user units were sometimes respected and sometimes not. I'm now not talking about pdfToolbox, but about other applications, and for PDF that obviously often is Adobe Acrobat. Adobe Acrobat didn't respect them, so when Acrobat displayed the size of a page, it was the size without taking user units in account. That has changed recently. I don't know when, but a couple of months or maybe 1 year or so, they changed it. And that, of course, makes the whole thing more visible to users. And therefore, we decided to, in pdfToolbox 11, and in various spots, we allowed the user to specify whether user units should be taken into account or not. And now, since user units from our point of view are really something internal, so actually we don't want to ask a user whether they want to take user units into account or not, because this is just some internal thing of the PDF file. So a user shouldn't actually have to bother about user units at all. And therefore we decided in pdfToolbox 12 to completely build user units into the engine. That means user units are from now on always respected. So when you check for image resolution, for instance, so of course an image with 300 ppi on a page with user units, then the inch is 4 times as big. So the resolution goes down by 4. So 300 divided by 4 would be the effective image resolution. And that is what you will get out of pdfToolbox 12, as long as user units are there. Same for line thickness, for text size, for whatever values has a relationship to the dimensions of a page. And that also means if you have 2 PDFs with effectively same dimensions, where one PDF file has a user unit, meaning internally all values are divided by 4, and the other PDF doesn't, but effectively they have the same size, then they behave in the same way in pdfToolbox 12. There is one difference here. So we still want to inform you, if you're interested, about whether or not user units are present. And that is, for instance, the case immediately at the bottom of a PDF page, where in a file without user units, it would look like this. And in a PDF file with user units, with effectively the same size, so you can see here the effective values are the same, but there is a scaling factor, so we're still calling scaling factor, but that is the same as user units. We give you the information, so the nominal MediaBox, the nominal crop box has this values, and the effective one, where the scaling factor is taken into account, has 4 times as high values. So in general, this checkbox that you see here is gone, because user units are always taken into account. There is one exception when it comes to the page box, the page geometry boxes themselves. So nominally inside of a PDF file, the trim box would be different from the effective trim box, of course, because the nominal values are still the same. So in some cases, you may be interested in the nominal real values that are written inside of the PDF file, and not the effective ones that are multiplied by the user unit entry. So for these particular properties that deal with the page geometry boxes, this checkbox remains in the UI. Now scripting. In scripting, we also whenever it's about image resolution or anything else, as I've mentioned, same applies here. Effective values will be used. And again, if you are dealing with the page geometry boxes, you have a choice of using either the nominal values, which is crop box, or the effective crop box, which is effective crop box. And of course, in the same way for the other page geometry boxes. And then as a side note, whenever page boxes are used by pdfToolbox internally, so for instance for page content or in custom reports, then dimensions are always effective. So this is really details, but for the ones who deal with this stuff, this is information that is useful when you adjust maybe stuff for pdfToolbox 12. And that's it for user units. So management summary is user units. You don't have to care about what user units are after this presentation in pdfToolbox 12. It's just taken into account, and effective values are in general used. Another internal thing of a PDF file is a MediaBox. So the MediaBox has to be present in every PDF file, and usually it starts with its lower left edge at 0, 0. So the origin of the internal coordination system of a PDF file, but it can be moved in the PDF file. So it doesn't necessarily start there. And many applications have problems if that is not the case, because they just expect it to start at 0, 0. And because there are these problems, we have decided to, in pdfToolbox 12, slightly change the behavior so that whenever the incoming PDF file has the MediaBox starting at 0, 0, then we keep it there. So up until pdfToolbox 12, if you would have scaled a page, you may have, and you have scaled the page maybe at the trimbox origin, then you may have moved the MediaBox from 0, 0, so that you would have negative values for the origin of the MediaBox. And with pdfToolbox 12, this will no longer be the case. Then the trimbox will be moved when you scale the page, so that the MediaBox stays as 0, 0. Similar to create bleed, where you need the MediaBox had to be enlarged in order to make space for the bleed box. Up until Toolbox 12, the MediaBox would then go to the left, to the lower left further, so that it's beyond the 0, 0 origin. This is no longer the case in pdfToolbox 12. However, if you directly modify the MediaBox with a page geometry fix-up, then you specifically say what's going to happen, and that is the exception to the rule. In this particular case, the MediaBox will indeed go, will not end up at 0, 0 again. So far, lots of dimensions and internal PDF values. We think what is now the case in pdfToolbox 12 is more consequent, more clear, more makes it easier to deal with the thing, and that brings me to the end of this part and allows me to deliver this microphone to my colleague who's just jumping in out of the nowhere.
Okay. Yeah, we have a little hideout there where we can hang out. So the second part is perhaps even less visible in most cases, if at all possible. And it is about optimization. Now, to explain maybe still a little bit what this means. Optimization in PDF files is possible because PDF files exist of objects. Yeah? And what do we mean by that? The file consists of small areas, regions, byte ranges, however you want to express it, that belong together, and that is called an object. And those objects can be referenced from multiple places. So imagine that you have a file with an image, and that image appears on every page. That image is what we call an object, and it can be referenced from every page, so it doesn't have to be in the file 10 different times. That was the way PDF was set up, and it was set up that way to make it efficient, but of course not everyone is forced to follow that efficiency. And you can actually make a PDF file that has maybe a presentation that has a background, and the background is the same on every page, but the PDF writer decides not to be clever and to have that background in the file 10 times. That is absolutely possible. There is nothing wrong with that, except of course that the file will now be a lot bigger. And the other advantage of reusing it would be that sometimes if a file like that is printed, if you have a clever RIP, it might be able to cache some of these things as well. And if you keep repeating the object, you have 10 different objects, one for each page, then that is not possible. Yeah? In order to fix this, you can do optimization. And so optimization in the broadest sense of the word is that a process looks at all the objects in the PDF file and it tries to figure out which of these objects can be thrown away so that you get a smaller file in the end. And sometimes it could be the whole object that is thrown away, but sometimes you could be much more clever than that. And you could say, I have two fonts here. They are more or less the same, but they use different character sets. Why don't I take the characters from these two fonts and put them in one, and then I will have a more optimized PDF file again? What could possibly go wrong? The problem, of course, is that things could go wrong during optimization. That is, of course, never the intended goal. But if you start looking at a complex file and then you have an optimization algorithm, depending on the PDF and the complexity of the PDF itself, and maybe the PDF isn't 100% compliant either. And so you could have things that go wrong in that optimization process. And all of a sudden, now you haven't gained some space, but you have actually broken a PDF. And that is not something that you want to happen. So before pdfToolbox 12, this optimization was on by default. And in the CLI, the server SDK, there were ways to switch it off. Yeah? In the desktop, there was not really a way to switch it off. In pdfToolbox 12, that has been changed to what you see here. And what it basically means is that by default, there is only very limited optimization going on, the things that are supposedly safe. And the optimization, the full optimization as it was the default in previous versions, that can be enabled again by using different ways. Which different ways? Well, this is what you have in the desktop. So if you look at the preferences panel in pdfToolbox 12, you'll see that there is a new preference section area under General that talks about optimization and where you can disable, enable individual parts of the optimization that you can do. Same for pdfToolbox Server CLI, where it was on by default in version 11 and before. Now it is off by default, and you have to switch it on if you want to save as an optimized file. And this brings with it some changes in the options and commands that you have in pdfToolbox CLI. So that is important to know. There was a no optimization option that is no longer there. there was an optimize PDF command or action, rather, they are called for the CLI. That action is no longer there, but the optimize PDF command can still be used on the command line. In this case, to switch on optimization that is by default off. So there's a little bit of work that has gone on there. And if you use the CLI to run command lines, and you have in the past used this no optimization flag, or you rely on the fact that optimization happens, it would be good to review the actual command line that you use. Same for the SDK, where there was a no optimization flag, and where that has been replaced with a flag that now switches on an optimized save of the PDF file again. That was a very internal topic. So let me hand it off to Dietrich for something that is a little bit more visible again.
Yeah. There was one question to the MediaBox session from Dietrich. So,
yes, I'm here.
So I waited until David was ready with his part of the presentation. And the question was regarding the setting the MediaBox to the origin and why it is not performed when changing the MediaBox directly. I'm not sure I understand the question really.
Yeah. I mean, the MediaBox you can change relative to the existing MediaBox. So, and if you want to keep it at the origin, then you should, instead of moving the left-hand side and the bottom side of the edge, instead of moving that, you should move the upper side and the right side. So you have the ability. So it's not changed there because you have, yeah, sorry, I was looking at Ulrich. So it is not changed there because you have control about what is happening. And for whatever reason, someone might want to change the lower left position of the MediaBox to not be at the origin of the coordinate system. That is the reason. So wherever you don't have that control, the engine takes care of not moving it from that point. But where you have the control, we let you decide what you want. Okay?
Okay, I think we will have further discussion on that topic. So, so there's some more answers in the chat, but I think
my questions.
Yeah, but regarding the same topic.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, then I will look into these questions and I will answer them after the session probably. Yeah, I think it's really detail. Yeah. Okay. Next, free tools in pdfToolbox. So there were always tools in pdfToolbox that were freely available. So it was always possible, for instance, to explore the tagging structure. It was always possible to explore the depart structure, also to read the barcode. But we have added to that. And we made more things available. So for instance, it's becoming now possible to use the PDF Structure Explorer without a license to explore the fonts in a PDF file, and most importantly, to use the test mode. Why have we done so? In many cases, pdfToolbox Desktop is used as a tool for automation, and then of course not so much to really process files, but as a development tool for creating profiles that are then being used on a server in CLI or with the SDK. And we wanted to make that more comfortable, more easy for users. And then it was always possible to create a profile without a license and to modify it, but it wasn't possible to find out whether it works according to expectations. And we all know in such a complex beast as what pdfToolbox is these days, this is almost impossible, in many cases at least, to get the right solution for a problem without testing it. So we decided to make the test mode that was available in pdfToolbox 11 available to everyone who has just downloaded a pdfToolbox desktop application from somewhere and has it on a desktop. We also want, with the Explorer, with the PDF Explorer, we just want to help developers, PDF developers, to provide a tool that is freely available to look into internal structures of a PDF file. We believe into dpart. Dpart, Olaf already mentioned it yesterday. We believe this is a really strong tool for the future for doing page-based automation. But our feeling is this feature somehow lacks from the ability to view what is inside of a PDF file. So whether there is a dpart structure, and if so, what is in it. So, and that was the reason why we decided to make that freely available. And for tagging, it's similar to dpart. So we believe it's just a good thing to be able to see tagging, to visualize tagging structure. So that is what I've just said about test mode. So this is becoming possible. And then while we are at it, I also want to re-emphasize how powerful this test mode is. And I will also give a very short live demo on it right after this section of this talk. So as you see here, it is possible to just execute a profile, a fix-up, or a check on a PDF file in an environment that is isolated from the engine. So it temporarily creates something, and then you can analyze what you've gotten, find out whether it's the right thing, whether it meets your expectation, and when you close the whole thing, everything is gone. And then you, on the right hand side here, you can see you have just a regular result view in test mode available to double check what has been done. But it has more. So if you're working with variables, it allows you to, so it gives you a different view. So when you're in the variable editor and use the test mode, it behaves differently. There you get what is the result of your variable after its execution. So it allows you for variable debugging. If you're working with shapes, if you're creating shapes, it again works differently. Now you have a shape preview, and that is the intermediate shape that has been created before the shape is applied. And since application of a shape also may modify it, this is a helpful tool to find out what was determined and being the shape by pdfToolbox in the first place, before it was actually applied. And finally, and that is new because the OCR feature is new, it allows you, it gives you a preview, or not just a preview, it displays the result of the OCR that has taken place. So this is the only place in pdfToolbox where the invisible text that is created by an OCR engine is made visible. So here is a place where you can double check whether the OCR results are correct. Yeah, that is basically in every OCR engine. The result in PDF are not really visible because in PDF they are just added as invisible text. However, here we thought, okay, if you're developing tools or profiles, and that may include OCR, then at least there should be one place where we make this OCR result visible, and that is available here. So as you may see, we are slightly getting away from the field free tools topic, and a headline here, we are also looking into what OCR is. But I just briefly want to show what I'm talking about, if I can. And then I need, yes, one file, and let's use this one. So as you see, so I've lost my license here. I'm managing director at Callas software, but I don't have a license for my pdfToolbox 12, so this is not activated. I can display the PDF file, so that's not a problem at all. But if I now want, let's say I want to apply OCR on the thing, it tells me, okay, you can't. You have to buy a license and or activate the thing. But however, what I can do, I can hit here the edit button, and then I can hit here the test button. And then it opens the test mode and executes the fix-up that I have used here. And as I've said, now here I have the OCR preview, and that shows me the not ideal, but quite okay OCR results on this particular PDF file. By the way, we will have more details about this new OCR feature tomorrow afternoon after 4 o'clock. So this is part of the PDF Engines presentation. Here I wanted to concentrate on the OCR preview that we made available. And of course I could as well, just let me do one more thing here. I could, for instance, use that fix-up. Again, I couldn't use it here because I don't have a license, but I can use it in test mode. And then it applies the fix-up on the PDF file. And this particular fix-up is, yeah, maybe a dumb thing. I hope you can see that. It has just added a violet rectangle here. And that is just running inside of the trim box, so nothing spectacular. But still, I wanted to show you that the shape preview shows me what has been created as a shape here. So far, what I wanted to show, let me just prepare that so that for David, that's, I guess, what I wanted to say and show, and I hand it over to David again.
Good. So the last section in this particular presentation. And this one is about actions, which were probably my least favorite part of pdfToolbox up to now, but that might change. And I shouldn't say least favorite because they allowed you to do some things in process plans where there was no other way to do it in a process plan. So that, of course, was good. But if you have ever used actions, then you know that you could create them in the switchboard, and that was about it. And that was what I normally said during trainings as well. You show people that you can create an action, and then you click OK, and nothing happens. And the only thing you could do with the action was rename it or delete it again. And then, of course, you can also use them afterwards in process plans, which was the whole point of the action. But that was kind of limited. And in pdfToolbox 12, actions have become what I call first-class citizens, which means that all of a sudden you can do much more with them. And this process is exactly what happened with variables at some point in pdfToolbox as well, where they became an object that lived by itself. The proof of that is that if you go to manage libraries, for example, there is a section for variables in each library. And you can reuse them between different checks and fixes. So actions have gotten a serious upgrade now as well. You can still create them in the switchboard, but it is no longer the only way to create them. And you will see that they have moved into other areas of the product. What you have here is a preview of the screen grab of the fix-up list. And in that fix-up list at the top there, you can see in action. So if you create actions in the switchboard, you can, from this point on, find them in the fix-up list where they live a happy and rich life. Because you can not only see them there, but as you can see in the screenshot on the right, there is now also an edit button. So I can click on edit and then I get the action editor. And this is a completely new window that didn't exist before. And this allows me to edit the properties of an action. Yeah? So where before, if I did a step and repeat, for example, and I said 2 by 3, so 2 columns, 3 rows, and later I changed my mind and I said, no, it was 4 by 3, then I would have to delete the action I had and create a new one. I couldn't modify what I had created in the switchboard. Now you can just hit edit and you'll be able to modify all the selections that you made there. Yeah. What does that mean? It means that not only can you edit them from the fix-up list, you can also create them. If you go to the action menu in the top right of the fix-up window, there will now be a new menu item, create action, and that brings up that same fix-up editor, action editor, of course, I mean. It brings up the action editor, and there you can choose the type of action that you want and fill out all the properties. And that's the other big change, is that what I used to tell people is that creating an action in the switchboard was nice. It meant you could use it in a process plan, but you were limited because the switchboard was made for easy use. So you had only access to a limited subset of the properties of an action. And for example, for the image export, in the switchboard, you had maybe 10 different things you could set. If you would look in the CLI for that same action, then there were maybe 20 or 30 parameters. Now in the action editor, you have access to all of the properties of each action. Even better, these properties can now also use variables, and just as checks and fix-ups and everything else, you don't need to have really fixed values. You can have variables and fill things up on the fly. So generally, while we put this in the internal section of pdfToolbox 12, because of course it's an upgrade of the internal format of these action objects, in reality it's a much bigger change and also a very visible change in there. So let me see if I can break Dietrich's laptop here. It's always a nice goal in life. So we have the fix-up window here, and as you can see, there is an action there at the top. Fix-ups have this orange type of icon. Actions have a green icon in there, so you can tell them apart quite easily. And at the right, I have an edit button. And if I bring the action button here into view, I have a create action menu item as well. And let me just click that one. And then you'll see that there is a new editor that appears. And at the top, I can give my new action a name. Yeah, we can use this. Well, let's do extract image or save as image. You have the wrong keyboard, of course. See, it's the wrong keyboard. Wrong for me. And then where would my, here, zoom in again. So you can see that in the list, you have all of the different types of actions that you normally could create only in the switchboard. and I can select image export, and then I have all the different properties that are available as well. So I could say from which page to which page, an image resolution, or if I scroll down here, I could, for example, say that I want a PNG file and I want it to be, I don't know, it can't be multi-channel in this case, can it? PNG, so RGBA. And I have way more properties here than I ever had available in the switchboard. And these orange things that you see here at the right-hand side of each edit field, of course, are again the access to the variable section. And that means that all of these properties that we have here can also use variables to configure them from the outside, which is really cool because that means I can make an action now, put it in a process plan, and then feed it from something that I calculate in the step before in the process plan, or something that comes from outside in a bigger automation workflow. And if I want to use a step and repeat, for example, I wouldn't have to make two different actions and then have different branches in my process plan. I can simply use variables for that. And when you save that, it will just be saved into the fix-up list. And from there on, I can again edit it or just run it. Of course, not now, because Dietrich, unfortunately, has no license in his PDF toolbox.
You can still create and edit.
But you can still create and edit, but which is the same as fix-ups and profiles and so on, of course. Yeah. And I think that is what I planned to show about that. So I don't know if there are any more questions about that.
Yes, we have one question. I'm not sure how it is related to actions, but probably you can answer it anyway. So a question is about deletion of crop marks in a PDF file. Mm-hmm. Is this possible?
Yes. Yes, it depends, but crop marks normally, but there are multiple ways of doing things usually in pdfToolbox, and it sometimes depends a little bit on the type of workflow on the file or the file that you're dealing with. Crop marks are typically outside of the trim box, I would hope, if they're good crop marks, and they should actually be outside of the bleed box as well. So you could quite easily set up an action that deletes everything outside of the trim box or outside of the bleed box, and then do it like that. So remove objects, and then with an apply to filter that says only objects that are outside the trim box or bleed box, for example. You can be a little bit more careful than that by saying remove objects outside trim box that are vector elements, and I think there is a condition to look for lines specifically. Registration color, and then you're pretty much sure at that point that you're probably not going to be removing other things.